Hello, this is David from David Books and Comics, and today I'm going to present the next 50 Harlequins from 51 to 100, and I'm going to ask my brother John to do the presentation. I'm going to present the books, and John will be speaking to and about the books.
Hi, hello once again. Now these two books, these are either the next Harlequins or Dave's changing his channel into a cooking channel. He's going to teach us how to cook roast chicken. Well, no, these are actually the next books in the series. This is Harlequin number 51 and 52, the Pocket Purity Cookbook and Livre de Cuisine Purity Petit Format. This is English and the French version. These are the first non-fiction books published by Harlequin. They're also the first photo covers, and we're going to see a few photo covers today. And they're also the first ones to carry a cover price. And the reason why is because they're actually fairly thick books. Now, there were some fairly thick ones that showed up before, but they did not have cover prices. The other books would have sold, they're not no price at this point, but they would have sold for 25 cents each. Okay, now these two books, usually when they're put up for sale, you see some dealer on the internet trying to sell these. They usually start with something like the cookbooks, and they're trying to impart a sense of how rare these are. You can almost hear the hushed tones. But the truth of the matter is, this book here is not a rare book. In fact, of the first 100, this is probably one of the more common ones. This one, on the other hand, of the first 100, this is easily the scarcest one. In fact, of the first 500, it's by far the scarcest. That doesn't mean it's the most desirable one, but it is the scarcest. Okay. Now, the title Purity, that refers to a flour mill, Purity Flour Mills. Okay, so that's 51 and 52.
This is The Pale Blonde of Sand Street by William Chapman White.
Yeah, that's number 53. Cover art is by Rickard. I believe it's signed on the cover somewhere. This is actually, it has fantasy elements. It's usually, when people make lists of Harlequin's fantasy science fiction, this book is usually on the list. It has fantasy elements about this woman. She meets this sailor, then they lose touch, and she's basically trying to find him throughout the book, and it's definitely got fantasy elements to it. Okay, so that's that one.
This is number 54, Speak of the Devil by Elizabeth Saxe Holding.
Yeah, Saxe Holding. Elizabeth Saxe Holding, she's more of a traditional mystery writer. If you're somebody who likes a traditional mystery as opposed to, say, hard-boiled mystery, she's definitely for you. Very good writer, very prolific. Now, the cover art on this is not signed. I'm not really sure who did this. It could be Cy Heel, is my guess, or Norman Max Ralph. Beautiful cover, irregardless.
This is Harlequin book number 55, Mr. Sandeman Loses His Life by Eugene Healy.
Now this, the cover art's by Rickard, you can tell, because it looks like the previous, the cover right beside it, number 53, it looks like the guy, the sailor here, is taking a drink. So it's basically the same cover, same artist.
This is Harlequin book number 56, The Mayor of Côte Saint Paul.
Côte Saint Paul, yeah.
Côte Saint Paul.
Ronald J. Cook is the author. He's a Canadian writer, a Montreal writer. The cover art, I'm not sure. It's not signed. I think it's Cy Heel, but I'm not really positive. This is a paperback original. It's the second paperback original published by Harlequin. The first one was number 7. It was also by Ronald J. Cook. Now, this book is about rum running during the days of Prohibition.
This is number 57, Murder Man by William Bogart.
William Bogart, American pulp writer.
Little Caesar?
No.
Same guy? No.
William Bogart, he actually wrote some of the Doc Savage novels. Doc Savage, most of them were written by Lester Dent under the name Kenneth Robeson, the house name. But every now and then, Lester Dent would go on vacation or he'd be ill, and other writers would fill in. And Bogart actually, I think, wrote 3 of them, actually in sequence, I think in 1947, 46, 47, somewhere around there. Now, this cover here, this is by Norman Max Ralph. I don't think it's signed. But I mentioned in the previous video that Norman Max Ralph had this really odd style of painting where he would use this stippling technique, which is a technique you usually see in pen and ink illustration. And you see it down here. Instead of blending one color into the next, and even on the door here, instead of blending one color into the next, he uses this stippling technique, which is really unique. And he uses colors that, a color palette that's very much at odds with the subject matter. You got pink, you got a purple door, you got pinks here, you got yellow. You would expect for a novel like this, which is a murder mystery, you would expect dark, somber colors throughout, but no. And irregardless, it works really well. It's a beautiful cover.
This is number 58, Outpost of Vengeance by E. Halloran.
A Western, of course, yeah. Eugene E. Halloran, American writer, prolific. Cover art by Rickard, of course, signed down here.
Signed. This is Cardinal Rock by Richard Sale. He's a pulp writer.
Yeah, number 59. Very prolific pulp writer. Signed R, that's Norman Max Ralph. Same artist that did this cover here. Notice the very bright colors. Now this book, this is actually an adventure book, but usually when people make lists of some of the science fiction books that were done by Harlequin, usually they mention a book that was, I'm going to show you in a little while, number 79. I'm going to show you a little later. But this book is never mentioned, but this book definitely has science fiction elements because it's about this guy who lives on this island by himself. And you notice on the cover, his hands look white. His hands aren't actually white. He's actually wearing gloves. And the reason why is because he's a leper. He has leprosy. And he actually, in the story, he actually finds a cure for leprosy. And at the time, there was no cure for leprosy. And there is now, but there wasn't at the time this book was written. So it's definitely a science fiction element to the story. Now, I also want to mention, in the previous video I did on the first 50 Harlequins for Dave, I showed number 12, and that's this book here. I just want to show it again because the camera went out of focus, but I want to show it here because this book also has science fiction elements. So this is a mystery novel, but it takes place in the near future. Okay, this is number 12, cover art by Rickard. It takes place in the near future, and the killer that's loose among us is not an actual person. You see the shadowy figure here, but it's actually a plague that's made in a laboratory. So, interesting book. Okay, so we'll set those aside.
This is number 60 by Elizabeth Sanksay Holding, Lady Killer.
Yeah, now this book here, cover art is Lyle Glover. I believe it's signed somewhere. It is signed. Lyle Glover, like Norman Max Ralph, he would often use colors that were at odds with the subject matter. Like here, you don't really notice it as much except for the odd green, but he was particularly good at lighting. He did several covers where he make use of dramatic lighting, and you really see it on this cover, and you're going to see it on a few others that he did. Interesting thing about this book, the lady killer in the story is actually not even a man. The lady killer is actually a woman.
This is number 61, Shadow of the Badlands by E. Halloran.
Yeah, once again, Eugene E. Halloran. The cover art, I'm not sure about this, but I'll comment when we get to number 63. This is one.
And this is number 62. This is Message from a Corpse by Sam Merwin Jr.
Okay, this book here, Sam Merwin Jr., well-known pulp writer, wrote science fiction, fantasy, mystery, of course. This is by Norman Max Ralph, the cover art. You can see, once again, the purple door, the really light cover colors. Beautiful cover, once again, Norman Max Ralph.
And this is The Dangerous Dead, number 63 by William Brandon.
Yeah, now this one here, cover art is signed GL. GL is Jerry Lazar. Jerry Lazar, oh, you know who he is, Dave.
Yeah, Jerry Lazar was an artist for Bell Features. He drew many of the Bell Features comic books.
Yeah, interesting thing about Lazar.
1940s.
Yeah, interesting thing about Lazar. That was in the early 40s. This book here is from 1950, I think. All the books we're going to show are from 50, 51. But he would have been working as a commercial artist by this point for maybe 7 or 8 years. But he was still in his mid-20s. He started in comics at the age of 16. Now, I think this cover here is probably also Lazar. I'm not really sure because it's not signed, but I think this cover is Lazar as well.
This is number 64, M. Scott Mitchell.
I'm Scott Michelle. Yeah.
Sinister Warning.
Yeah. Publishers would often change the titles of books. I don't know, for whatever reason. This is kind of a generic title. I think the original title was much better, The X-Ray Murders. Now, this is also by Jerry Lazar. It's actually
a nurse. It's a nurse.
Yeah, it looks like a nurse romance, but it's not. This is actually a murder mystery. The X-Ray Murders is the original title. It's actually signed down here, Jerry Lazar.
The next one is number 65. This is Bridewell Beauty by HME Clamp.
Yeah, I don't know too much about
photo
this.
Cover.
Yeah, photo montage cover. Actually, it's 3 photos. There's the photo background and the 2 figures. It's 3 different photos. Cy Heel. Yeah, Cy Heel is the artist. Strange cover. The woman with the popping eyes. We're going to see a few more Cy Heel covers where you see a woman with popping eyes. Really unusual cover. This is a historical novel, of course.
Next one is number 66, Royce of the Royal Mounted.
Yeah, Amos Moore. George Hubbard, I think is his real name. Glover, this is Lyle Glover, of course. See the bright cover colors. This is an adventure novel. They later reprinted this book with a different cover years later.
Number 67 is Crisscross by Don Tracy.
Now this is a famous book. This was done into a famous noir movie. It's considered one of the best noir movies, one of the top 5 noir movies, with Burt Lancaster, Dan Duryea, one of the best villains in the noirs ever. Beautiful cover art on this. It's not signed, but this is definitely Rickard did this cover. Very good book, very good writer.
The next one is The Queen City Murder Case by William G. Bogart.
Yeah, William G. Bogart once again. Cover art once again by Rickard.
We'll move these aside and grab the next batch. This is number 69, Payoff in Black by William G. Schofield.
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 Yeah, I think it's Schofield. Cover art not signed. It's a crime novel, of course. I believe this is Jerry Lazar did this because this figure here, the facial features is the same as the from Dangerous Dead, the exact same facial features. So I think that's Jerry Lazar.
Number 70 is Knife in My Back by Sam Merwin Jr.
Yeah. Once again, Sam Merwin Jr. Bright cover colors. You see the stippling on the woman's blouse. So of course, this is Norman Maxwell, and of course, you see his signature down there. Beautiful cover, of course.
Number 71 is Bouquet Knitter's Guide.
Well, if Dave doesn't want to go into the cooking channel, he can always go into knitting. Okay. This cover is actually an infinity cover, what's called an infinity cover, because you can see the little illustrations is actually the book cover, and of course you see it there, so it's called an infinity cover. Now this is
priced?
Yeah, this is actually priced. You notice none of these have prices, of course. The cover on this is also very similar to the original, which was published by a wool company.
Number 72 is Night of Terror by Joy Brown.
Joy Brown, magazine editor. She was married to a magazine executive as well at the time. I think John Brown was his name. Interesting thing about Joy Brown, this is a paperback original, by the way. Interesting thing about Joy Brown, if there's people out there from the older generation who are Canadian, they remember a TV show called Front Page Challenge. Front Page Challenge had personalities, of pretty famous Canadian personalities, Gordon Sinclair, Pierre Burton. But the guy who was the moderator of the show was Fred Davis, and he was actually married at one point to Joy Brown, which is kind of interesting. This book here, you notice the stippling in the cover right away. You know this is Norman Max Ralph, and you can actually see the last 3 letters of Ralph, LPH here. It's sort of obliterated by the word Harlequin, but this is Norman Max Ralph. Beautiful cover once again.
Number 73 is a Western. It's called The King of Thunder Valley. Archie Jocelyn.
Archie Jocelyn, very prolific writer. This is the first of the Archie Jocelyn books done by Harlequin. They did several. I don't know who did this cover. It's actually signed at the bottom, but every copy I've ever had of this it's the signature is cut off. So I don't know who did this. But the cover is actually a swipe from a movie poster by El Paso, I think is the movie it's a swipe from, like the two figures fighting, but not the woman. Okay, so that's a Western.
Number 74. It's Van Wyck Mason. It's The Spider House.
Spider House, not the Spider House.
Spider House.
Yeah. Beautiful cover. Lyle Glover. I believe it's signed somewhere on the cover. It's Lyle Glover. Beautiful cover. Okay. Mystery novel, of course.
The next one is number 75. It's J.E. Grinstead, The Maverick Guns.
Another Western. J.E. Grinstead, yeah. Rickard cover, of course. This is now remember, this is Harlequin, but correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't that a corpse on the cover? We're going to see several corpse covers. I'm not sure why they were into corpse covers. Like, they later reprinted this book, but they didn't put the corpse on the cover. They put something a little less innocuous, a little more innocuous.
Number 76, The Corpse Came Back.
Well, of course, we got
Amelia R. Long.
We've got another corpse, Amelia Reynolds Long. This is by Cy Heel and Lyle Glover. Of course, you see the bright colors. Like Lyle Glover always used these really light cover colors. You see the pink on the corpse. So definitely Lyle Glover. Mystery, of course.
The next one is number 77 by Owen F. Jerome, and that's Oscar J. Friend.
Oscar J. Friend, of
He
course.
was a literary agent to people like Isaac Asimov and Robert E. Howard.
Yeah. Prolific writer as well, magazine editor. This cover here, Jerry Lazard, signed at the bottom. Unusual typography. If you look at the typography, it's kind of unusual, but I think it's because of the artwork, because they got the painting that's sort of askew on the cover. So I guess they sort of had to put it on the text like that, but it actually works. It's a nice cover.
So we'll put these aside and we'll go for the next batch. So number 78 is a hockey novel by Don McMillan called Rink Rat.
Yeah, and this is Norman Max Ralph. It's signed right at the bottom here. This is actually a normal cover by Norman Max Ralph, a sports novel.
Number 79 is another Richard Sale. It's called Lazarus Number 7.
Yeah, and this is a photo cover. Now, who do we know that did photo covers? We just showed one, Bridewell Beauty. This is not signed, but the other one was Cy Heel. This is definitely Cy Heel did this. Now, when people talk about science fiction in Harlequin, this book is always mentioned. The science fiction element on this is actually a mystery. It's about this guy who, he brings this guy back to life and so that the guy can name his murderer. And that's the science fiction element. So it's like borderline, very, very minimal SF element. Strange cover.
The next one is number 80. It's called Case of the Six Bullets.
Oh, R.M. Lawrenson.
R.M. Lawrenson.
Yeah. I don't know who did this cover art. The way that the figure in the foreground is done, the way the clothes are done, looks like Lyle Glover, but the colors don't. So I'm not sure who did this. The foreshortening on the figure is kind of strange. Mystery, of course.
This one is number 81 by Paul Evan Lehman.
You got the dramatic lighting, the light cover colors, beautiful, beautiful cover. Lyle Glover, of course. We've seen the cover earlier, Lady Killer with the dramatic lighting. Glover was particularly good at this.
Number 82 is The Cold Train by Paul Evan Lehman, another Western.
Cold Trail.
Cold Trail.
Yeah, the guy has a pink shirt. Well, Lyle Glover was involved, of course, and I think Cy Heel as well was involved. Western, of course. 2 books in sequence by Paul Evan Lehman.
The next one is number 83 by hard-boiled mystery writer Joe Barry.
Yeah, very hard-boiled. This is another cover by Cy Heel and Lyle Glover. It's signed there. Beautiful cover once again.
And here's number 84, another Joe Barry, The Triple Cross.
This is another two authors in sequence. Now, when this book was reprinted in Australia as a Phantom Digest, they actually copied this cover, and I don't blame them. Beautiful cover. Lyle Glover, of course, did the cover.
And number 85 is She Died on the Stairway, Night Roads.
Another corpse cover. Night Roads, obviously a pseudonym. Nobody knows who it is. This is one of those books that was originally published in hardcover by one of those publishers that would do books for lending libraries. Very cheaply produced hardcovers, very poor quality paper, really obscure authors. Nobody seems to know who this is. Night Roads, an obvious pseudonym. Now the cover art on this, Cy Heel, we've seen a cover, Bridewell Beauty with the woman with the popping eyes with a photo cover. This has to be Cy Heel as well. Okay, another corpse cover.
Number 86 is Double Life by Owen F. Jerome. That's Oscar J. Friend.
Yep, once again, bright cover colors, very much at odds with what you would expect for a crime novel, and that's what this is. Lyle Glover, of course. The guy has green gloves, bright green background. Very strange color choice, but it works. Beautiful cover colors. Okay,
move these aside. And number 87 is Murder in Miniatures. This is Sam Merwin Jr.
Okay, another corpse cover, woman with the popping eyes. Sign down here, Cy Heel. Beautiful cover, very strange cover, actually.
Number 88, it's a Western, Renegade Ramrod by Leslie Ernenwine.
Yeah. Now this cover here, this was originally done as a paperback in the U.S. from Handy Books, and they had a very similar cover. So this cover is either a repainted version of the original or it's a copy of the original, one or the other.
Number 89 is the Faro Kid, again, Leslie Ernenwine.
Now this book here, this is another case where they did the same thing where they basically copied the cover. Like who actually did this cover, I don't know, but this is a repainted version of the Handy Books, I think. I think it was Handy Books. Handy Books are graphic.
Number 90 is The Widow Gay by A.A. Marcus.
Yeah, this is The Widow Gay, I believe, is the original title, but when it was reprinted in the U.S., they changed the title to Postmark Murder. But the cover they used was this, and I'm not sure if this is a repainted version of the graphic cover or if it's the actual graphic cover. I think it's repainted, but who did it, I'm not really sure. Mystery novel, of course.
Number 91 is Lady, That's My Skull by Carl Shannon.
Well,
Lyle Glover.
Lyle Glover, of course. You got pink curtains, bright green, yellow, really odd colors that you'd not expect for a mystery novel, but it's beautiful cover. Once again, Carl Shannon as a pseudonym of Wilbur Hogue. Mystery novel, of course. Looks like The Shadow.
Number 92 is Dig Another Grave by Don Cameron. He's a comic book writer.
Yeah, he actually wrote, was it Batman?
Batman,
yeah. Beautiful cover once again. This is a repainted version also. I can't remember if it was graphic or Handy that did the original in the US. But it's definitely a repainted version. But who repainted it, I'm not sure. The cover color is very light, looks almost like Lyle Glover, but I don't know. It's hard to tell.
The next one is Empty Saddles by Al Cody, Western.
Yeah, Lyle Glover, of course. You see the dramatic lighting with him lighting the cigarette, of course. Beautiful cover. Al Cody, Archie Jocelyn, of course.
Number 94 is The Range Doctor by Oscar J. Friend.
Oscar J. Friend, yeah. This covers, once again, this is a repainted version of the cover. I don't know who repainted this, though. Western novel, of course.
Number 95 is You're Lonely When You're Dead by James Hadley Chase.
James Hadley Chase, Renee Lodge, Brabazon Raymond. This cover is a repainted version of the hardcover published by Robert Hale, and they've even used the same typography up here. Now, who repainted this, I'm not sure. The cover colors look like Norman Max Ralph. It may have been Norman Max Ralph, but it's not signed. Beautiful cover here regardless. Okay.
So we'll move these aside. The next one it has no author. It's a Western, number 96, The Rider from Yonder.
Yeah, it has no author on the cover, but it's actually Norman A. Fox. Yeah, Norman.
Okay.
Norman A. Fox did it.
Okay.
You got, let's see what you have. You have here a pink mountain, a guy with a bright green shirt, another guy with a red shirt, and this guy in the green shirt, he's riding a pink and yellow horse. So, of course, you know Lyle Glover's involved. Beautiful cover once again.
Number 97 is My Old Man's Badge by Ferguson Findlay.
Another cover with a corpse on it. Lyle Glover cover, of course. Crime novel.
Number 98 is Jigger Moran by Joe Robert.
John Robert, yeah. John Robert, he actually won the Edgar Award. I don't know I forget what he won it for, but he did win the Edgar Award. Jigger Moran was a series character that he had. He was like a former he was a former lawyer, former criminal lawyer who turned cab driver, which is kind of unusual. Now the artwork is signed here, J.D. I'm not sure who that is. There was an artist named James McCarthy, James Durrett McCarthy. He would sometimes sign his name James McCarthy early on in his career. Later, he would sign Durrett in order to avoid confusion with his father, who was James McCarthy as well, who was also an artist. This may be him, but I'm not sure. It's sort of similar style. He had a very loose, sketchy style early on in his career. This may be him or it may be somebody else. I'm not really sure. Crime novel, of course.
Number 99 is Murder Queen High, and it has two writers, Bob Wade and Bill Miller.
Yeah, Bob Wade, Bill Miller. They usually signed their name as Wade Miller or sometimes Whit Masterson. Why this was published under their name, I'm not really sure. The original title of this was Pop Goes the Queen. Terrible title. It was reprinted in the U.S. as Murder Queen High, and Harlequin kept the same title. Beautiful cover. Once again, Lyle Glover.
Number 100 is Black Rider by Jackson Cole. It's got quite a miscut there.
Yeah, they miscut that badly. Jackson Cole, that's a house name. What did he write? Was it
He wrote tons of westerns. Yeah,
Didn't he do like a series character?
He wrote for forget the name of the company. Better Publications.
He did a series character, didn't he?
Yeah, I think he did.
Yeah, I forget who it was. I don't know who did this cover. The westerns generally of any publisher are hard to find in nice condition. I have several copies of this, but they're usually like pretty beat up. Westerns usually get read, and they're usually pretty hard to find in nice condition. So those are the next 50 books, 51 to 100. A pretty nice set of books. They're not scarce, with the exception of maybe the French cookbook that we showed earlier. I think the art on these books, beautiful cover art on these, they compare favorably with any publisher you want to name. Some of the American artists like Robert Maguire, McGinnis, Belarski. I think guys like Glover, Norman Max Rolfe, even some of the later ones like Paul Nasoik, Freed, James Durrett McCarthy, they compare favorably with any of those guys. Really collectible series, the most collected Canadian paperback series. A lot of collectible authors, very collectible series.
So if you like what you see, remember to give me the thumbs up, and thanks everyone for subscribing. And I'll put a link to the former video so you can watch, and feel free to comment. Thanks everyone for watching.
Yep. See you next time.
Bye.